Good morning, class. So, let us begin our today's session of international business environment. In our last sessions, we discussed regarding what do we mean by international business environment, how is it different from domestic environment, the meaning of it, concepts, dimensions of international business management, the difference between the two. So let us now see approaches to international business. So that is to tell what are the ways in which we can go international, or what are the different ways in which already the businesses have been set up. How do they consider themselves when they go international? Now, the differences in the international orientation and approach, by using these two, we can categorize the international business into different forms. So here basically we take down something called as EPRG framework, wherein which EPRG speaks about the four different kinds of orientation. The first one is ethnocentric orientation, or we can even call it as domestic market extension concept. And P would be standing for polycentric orientation, R would be standing for regiocentric orientation, and G stands for geocentric orientation. Now, a domestic company may initially start with, you know, a closed market and extend its operation across the worldwide in coming days or in the final stage. Now, there are some of the concepts which can be used to explain internationalization of business. Now, speaking about this EPRG framework, it was developed and introduced by two persons called as Wing Douglas and Perlmutter. Okay, these people focus on the international marketing operations of the company and the different attitudes that each organization will have when they go international. Now, speaking about the anatomy of this EPRG framework, now this particular approach addresses the way how business will be taking its strategic decisions, and how decisions are made within the company, and due to these decisions how the relationships would be shaped and maintained between the headquarters of the company and its subsidiaries. And the next one is that it will also tells a way in which business and the people who are working in that organization, or the employees of the organization, how they are going to view the world, can be known through EPRG. Now, as I said earlier, it consists of four stages in international operations and evolution process. Okay, and it will also tell how this organization is, in the eyes of the organization, how does it view the world, is being explained by this EPRG framework. Now, the first one is, we can call it as ethnocentric concept or domestic market extension. Under this, what happens is that the companies adopting or working in this particular way. Such kind of organization believes at every point of its business that the home country is superior in nature, and also the home countries has more opportunities in the international market, and whenever they go international they try to seek similarities with that of the home country. So for them, no matter what, the home country or the country of the origin of the organization is superior to the other countries in which they are going to start the business. And adopting this kind of orientation, such companies they hardly do any adoption to their products so that their product can suit or match the taste and requirements of the new market in which they are going to start the business. And also due to this reason that they are going to adopt very little, they are also making a little work on the part of research and study in the international market. It is to tell they simply go international. If at all there are such difficulties that they'll have to make the adoption, only then they would be changing. Otherwise, they would be going with the same product that would be available in their home country. And also, under this concept, the head office will always be given more importance as compared to the subsidiaries or the overseas subsidiaries, or the offices should be situated in international markets. Okay, and also such kind of companies they would always ignore the potential opportunities outside the home country, and that's why they will always be referred to as domestic companies. Now, the organizations which have their orientation of ethnocentric concept, such companies will always be guided by the casual players in the overseas market. Okay, for them, the overseas market is only a addition to the already existing market. They are with the only intention that they want to sell more. No other research and development work or any such kind of work would they be doing. Okay, and it is always said they use the overseas market as a buffer for checking the demand fluctuations in the domestic market, and their main focus will always remain the domestic market. Now, this particular kind of concept is usually preferred by small companies and sometimes even by large companies operating in today's competitive industries. Now, the overseas operations of such companies would usually be restricted to the exports and also in certain kinds of niche. And that's why all these characteristics of the business makes it an ethnocentric based organization in the EPRG scheme. Now, being the ethnocentric in nature, these companies always work on the notion that the products that they are producing are highly successful in the home country and can be sold in the markets without any further adoption. And because the main thing would be for them, they know that they are superior in the market. There would be no change in terms of product specification, or in terms of price, or how they do the promotion and other aspect, and it would be same as compared to the native market. Now, regarding the norms and the policies that would be framed and followed by the headquarters are necessarily to be adhered and followed by its subsidiaries companies in the overseas market. Okay. And also the general attitude of the people who are working, or the people who are in the senior management, especially in the headquarters of such companies or in the home country, would be that they think that they are capable to drive the international market or this international process of selling and activities better as compared to those people who would be working in the subsidiaries of different countries. Now, there are some certain advantage for this also. The advantage of this kind of attitude or this kind of mindset of the company at the end results in saving the cost of hiring more qualified people or staffs in the international markets, or also it simply migrates the staff from the home country, thereby saves the cost. And also along with this kind of concept or this kind of techniques helps in, and the organization in and its subsidiaries being affiliated or being centralized corporate culture, thereby it brings in what we call as synergy to the company. But along with the advantage that it is having, it has its own disadvantage. And the one main disadvantage of ethnocentric concept is that this kind of mindset can only be adopted for a short term period. That's why it is being called as short sightedness of the company. Moving forward, the next one is a polycentric concept or multi-domestic market. Now, what happens when an organization has its mindset under this is the companies following such operations always sees each country in which it is going to start its business as a unique and a exclusive opportunity, and they also consider that the business is always best run locally in the international market. That is to tell, the headquarters of such companies will always try to have as less possible control over the activities of each of its subsidiaries in international market, and also that they make very little attempt of making any good use of ideas and practices prevailing in the already set up markets. Now, when an organization goes for this kind of concept, it always results in laying of a very strong groundwork for its every subsidiary, and thereby helps developing a unique marketing and business strategies for each subsidiary for their success in their countries or in the domestic markets of each subsidiary, and every subsidiary would be given equal importance. Okay, now this kind of approach for any business organization is best suited whenever the countries will have some certain kinds of constraints, might be in terms of finance environment, I mean, or what we call as economic environment, or political and cultural environment. And we should always keep it in mind that as there is no need to transfer the skilled work from one country to other country or from the headquarters to the subsidiary, because there is no necessity of centralization here. Now, this approach is less expensive as compared to the ethnocentric concept, because there it is centralization, and when it is centralization, all the decisions and all the control would be there with the headquarters. So, because of that, the communication would be very, very less, which will definitely prove to be expensive. But when it comes for polycentric orientation, there would be as less as possible control over its subsidiaries, and the headquarters would be giving freedom to its subsidiaries to take its own decision and also to come up with the different strategies. So each of its subsidiaries stands as unique and strong in the domestic market in which they are doing the business. But then there is some disadvantage of this approach also. Now, the disadvantage is that this approach can restrict the advancement in the career of both local and foreign nationals working in the company. And also, there are chances that the polycentric concept reduces the chance of synergy within the firm as whole. That is to tell, now an individual, if at all, if he could be transferred or moved from one country to another country, definitely for that particular employee as individual, they will always have advancement in their career. And whenever a polycentric concept is adopted, due to the risk, due to the immobility of employees within their company itself, there are less chances for the advancement of employees, and also that there would be no any kind of synergy. That is to tell, I as a headquarter, I might have some unique characteristics which can definitely be used for the advantages of the other subsidiaries. But because I have less control, I would never be sharing all those things with the subsidiary, and the subsidiaries will always have to start from ground zero. And we should also remember that as the overseas operations of the companies grow, they recognize the need for different approaches to international business. Okay, and moving forward, the third one is global marketing, or what we call as regiocentric concept. Regiocentric concept follows that you know the similarities and differences in the world and its various operating regions, and designs the strategies accordingly. Now, Ethnocentric and polycentric were exactly opposite as each other. Now, under regiocentric concept, what happens as when it comes for domestic market, how the in the same way how we would be differentiating each market based on some of its characteristics. In regiocentric concept, this organization they see each market or each country in which they are coming up as different markets, and they would be coming up with the best strategies for every market in which they are going to be present. Now, the management of the company I will always try to figure out the maybe the economic, social, cultural, political similarities that would be present between the domestic area and also the overseas area, and thereby they would be satisfying the similar needs and demands of the potential customer. Okay. Now, as these companies direct their approach to become a global company, they will always have a global perspective in their operations. Now, such kind of companies will always look for very good business and investment opportunity in global basis. Now, they try to bring synergy by sourcing the resource from all across the globe, and when they do that they see to that they would select those market and only those market which can provide inputs to the business in a very cost effective manner. Now, one more thing or one more nature of such kind of business unit is that they never threat the SBUs operating in different market as totally independent entities. Now, SBU is nothing but a strategic business unit. Now, there are certain degree of the controls and policies which might be given to each of all these strategic business unit. Although allowances can be made, in terms of regional derivatives. Okay. Now, moving forward, the last one is Paul. There has been some mistake. The last one is geocentric orientation. Okay. Now, under geocentric orientation, what happens is that the companies which would be following such approach are truly called as the global players, as they always display or they always undertake the act what is called as think global, act local. Now, such companies will always view the entire world as their potential market, and they always take effective and efficient steps to satisfy the needs and of each and every market. They also recognize both the differences and similarities between their home country and the international market, and they will always blend all other types of concept of ethnocentric and polycentric views. Now, this global strategy that they take is aptly and fully would be responsible to the needs and the wants of the local customer, and thereby it encourages global marketing. Now, whenever a company goes in for the geocentric approach, it will never compare the nationality with the factor of superiority, and the company will always try to sell the best of human resource to solve the problems globally. And when it does, it will always consider the limits of all the legal and political factors. And due to this, it always ensures the effective and efficient use of its employees, and thereby it always try to build a strong culture and also what we call as information channel of management, which facilitates the smooth work process. And this is one of the approach which always finds a balance between both global integration and local response. But even after having so many advantage, it has one main disadvantage, that is the national immigration laws and policies might sometimes put certain limits to its implementation, and it is always expensive as compared to the polycentric approach. Moving forward, we were speaking about EPRG framework. Now, this framework has its own advantage, its own disadvantage. Speaking about its advantage or merits, a EPRG framework is less expensive as no cost or efforts are required for the adoption of the products. Now, it is also advantage because it is one of the easy route to explore international market with similar domestic features. Now, speaking about the demerits of EPRG framework, there will never be optimum or full exploitation of international human resource opportunities, and the main focus will always be on domestic market. Now, since we know how the companies are being divided under EPRG framework, we can take some of the example. Now, for ethnocentric, we can take the example of Nissan. Now, Nissan in the earlier days had something called as ethnocentric concept, which could be visible in their initial years when they started exporting cars to USA. Okay, what happened was it was difficult for these cars to get started in the or during the cold winter months. In Japan, what happened was the car owners would cover their cars with hoods or blankets during winters and expected the Americans to do the same. Now, speaking about regiocentric, the example can be given of McDonald's. In each country it is going to start its business, they would always consider the culture, the beliefs, and how the customer wants and needs differ. The best example was when the McDonald's that are present in India, they always serve the burgers without pork and beef, keeping in mind the religious sentiments of the local citizens. when we speak about geocentric orientation, the example can be given of the media MTV. Now, in each country it starts, they would always, you know, they have each different channels for each different country that they are going to come or start business, and they have one or some of the channels wherein which all the international songs would be played. Now let us move forward and see what are the benefits of international business. Now, there are several benefits for business when it goes international, and all these benefits can be studied from different perspective, and especially the benefits can be studied in terms of macro level perspective and micro level perspective or benefits. Now, the macro level benefits are those which adds to the nation's economy, and speaking about micro level advantage, these are beneficial for the each individual organization. So speaking about a macro level benefit, now every business which goes for international trade will always result in macroeconomic effect for its domestic economy. Maybe in terms even of the imports and exports, or also it influences the employment, the national income and technology. The first one is it always increases the national income. Whichever country which goes in for export activity always promotes industrial and trade activity and thereby generates employment and income for various sections of the society. Now, this multiple effect of income increases the level of output and growth rate of economy. Especially the export of wage goods can help developing country to break the vicious circle of poverty and also raise the real income of the country. The next one is employment generation. Now, as we discussed, this export will always constitute an important portion of different nations and opportunities for more and gainful employment. In addition to reducing the direct unemployment, foreign trade will also reduce what is known as underemployment. The next one is increased linkages. Now, here we can speak about the staple theory of economic growth. Now, this staple theory of economic growth recognizes that foreign trade results into increased backward and forward link with other sectors of the economy. The industrial and the trade links cause the development of new industry and enhances efficiency of existing industry. To give an example, if a company goes in for international business and if the product that it is exporting is belonging to the primary sector, and if it starts exporting more and more, it being a tertiary sector organization, it will also lead to the development of primary sector. Moving forward, the next one is optimum utilization of resources. Now, international business always makes possible the utilization of agricultural resource to the most possible, or need not be agriculture, maybe any resource that it is using to be accessed, more and more in the overseas market. Now this transforms even the subsistence sector into the market, and thereby it raises the standards of living of sometimes even the rural population. Moving forward, the next factor is educative effort. Now, exports and international business exposes the executives to overseas market, which will always result in developing greater skills in them. Now, this removes any kind of hindrance, often acknowledged as greater than scarcity of capital goods. And also, it results in the entrepreneurial and management expertise generally help the economy grow faster. And also, the traditional factors of the production can be used more effectively. And the next one is, it always promotes foreign direct investment. Now, the level of the international business of a country often becomes a base for the flow of the foreign direct investment in country. Now, in today's economic environment, it goes without telling that it is difficult, no matter for which country it might be, to grow in the absence of FDI. There are many companies which have grown flowing the heavy investment for other parts of the world. The next advantage is that it stimulates competition. Now, when a company goes for international business, or this international business always fosters healthy competition and help in curbing all the inefficiency that would be present in monopolies. Now, it establishes growth of competitive economies higher than the growth rate of protective economies. In recent times, all the nations have realized that how benefit it is to have a healthy competition. And also, nowadays there are more and more countries which are promoting this healthy competition. And the last one under macro level benefit is technology sourcing. Today's world is such a world where everything changes rapidly, and in such state it is important to keep up the pace with the changing technology. And this can possibly happen only when there is some kind of links with other nation economies, and this can happen only through international trade and business. Moving forward, let us say some of the micro level effects. Micro level effects are those which would be directly beneficial for the individual organization which would be going for international business. The first one is growth. Now, by all standards, need not be in particular. When you put together all the standards of a domestic market, each domestic market will have a limitation at certain point for the growth of the individual organization. Now, after a particular level, it becomes very difficult for a firm to achieve growth. So, it is left with no option of either product innovation or extending operations to other markets. And every organization finds it that The, the option of extending operations in other market is a better way of sustaining growth as the product life can increase significantly when it is sold in other markets or world markets. The next one is fighting competition. Now, as the method of protecting its own company's nation interests, now these protection measures are taken up by governments. Now, every firms operating in domestic market at some point will face increased level of competition. And there are, options for business that instead of utilizing whatever resources they have for fighting against the competition, the firms can continue to look markets in other countries to cope up with this domestic competition. And international business is one such which helps in providing different avenues for both survival and growth. The next one is increased efficiency. Whenever a company operates on global scale, it can select best opportunities for its expansion. Also, it can always reduce its product cost by global sourcing and utilizing world level technology and talents for its business. All this makes the business operation more effective, and as a result, it can always result in realizing higher return per unit investment. And this will always boost up shareholders' value and also company's image. The next one is scale economies. That simply tells higher level operations on account of international operations will always produce benefits of scale and thus you know increases the profitability of firm, or in other words it is simply called as economies of scale. Next one is innovation. Whenever a company operates in large market, companies can always afford to invest in research and technology development. Now it is established that compared to traditional mindset firms, innovation driven firms can always compete effectively. The last one is risk cover. Now, by operating on global scale, the fluctuation of demand levels in an individual country does not and will never make much difference on the aggregate scale. And consequently, the uncertainties arising out of risk factors on the operations, localized to a country are also reduced. Even in terms of financial risk, physical risk, or politic legal risk can be managed more effectively by virtue of this global operation. For this session, let us end it for this particular topic, and I would take your attendance and you can leave the meeting for now.